entrepreneurs focusing on where the government is going, it opens up additional opportunities by being aligned to where the government is going to invest. If there's an opportunity to automate a workflow where the steps are either yes or no, true or false, then it makes sense to look at it in terms of, yes, I can gain efficiency.
Today we are discussing how founders can balance revenue growth with sustainable strategy.
We are in unprecedented times where there's as much opportunity as there is obstacles. So if you're faced with an obstacle and you're stuck, turn around and look at the opportunities.
This episode is brought to you by Katana, inventory software built for growing product brands. Once you're growing and adding sales channels to your list, Shopify, Amazon, wholesale, retail, inventory gets a lot trickier. Katana makes it easy for you and syncs your stock automatically across every channel and location, so your numbers are always accurate in real time. It cuts your manual work to almost zero without any of the setup overhead or cost of traditional ERP software. And you can try it for free. Just head to katanamrp.com and start your free plan today.
Hi, this is Kripa Anand and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today we are discussing how founders can balance revenue growth with sustainable strategy in a volatile economic climate. In 2026, scaling from $0 to $10 million requires more than just a good product. It requires navigating shifting government priorities, smart funding, and the double-edged sword of AI adoption. Joining us today is Christine Crandell, Vice Chairperson of the Innovation Cluster. A Silicon Valley veteran who has advised over 100 public and private tech clients, Christine is a powerhouse in strategy, customer alignment, and sustainable revenue growth. So before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Christine, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, Christine, we are seeing a fascinating shift in the Canadian economy, right? Between new government priorities and global pressures, the old playbook is, kind of losing its nudge. So let's start by understanding, from your perspective, how can SME founders be thinking differently about this growth today? And in this environment, is revenue still the only metric that actually matters? Go ahead.
That's a really good question. We're at a time in the Canadian economy in which it's shifting. Like last year was all about tariffs, how to survive the tariffs and restructuring, and 2026 and 2027 are very much about looking at the structural shifts that are happening within the Canadian economy and how Canada is going to have a new global role. When for entrepreneurs and for founders, that creates unique opportunities, right? One of the things that we really recommend and that we have been following is look at where the government is going. Look at what the federal and the provincial priorities are for the next couple of years. And they're different. They shifted last year. So the focus now is on dual use, defense, it's on healthcare, it's on nuclear or clean infrastructure, and of course, housing and jobs. By entrepreneurs focusing on where the government is going, it opens up additional opportunities by being aligned to where the government is going to invest. So it's a little bit different. Well, actually, it's quite a bit different than it was several years ago because the government is shifting very rapidly, as are their priorities. So follow their priorities to unlock new funding. And what I hear a lot is, well, I'm not in defense. And our response is, you would be surprised. If you're making something in metal or a metal product or a healthcare product, or even say, for instance, you're making a wind turbine, you may very well find that you can have a defense application because that medical product might be needed in the Arctic Circle. We need wind turbines to generate revenue out in remote areas of the Yukon and up in the Arctic. So let's broaden the horizon of what we think is possible, but take a really hard look because that's where the opportunities are, and they will be for the next several years.
Wow, that's a very well-presented overview. And, it shows that profitability and resilience are becoming just as prestigious as top-line revenue in the eyes of investors and partners. Now, Christine, let's explore where the biggest untapped opportunities are emerging in the Canadian economy. You touched on this in the first answer as well. So, from your extensive experience, looking ahead, what emerging sectors or, market opportunities in the Canadian ecosystem should SMBs be paying closer attention to right now?
Right. One of the things about emerging trends is it's not what you're reading about in the newspaper. Right, we're all
because
reading.
That's old.
That literally, it's old.
Yeah.
And even those trends are different stages of maturation. Emerging trends do mature and come up over time, and there are a couple ones that are really exciting. The one that I find really fascinating is vertical AI. So if we look at the parallel in applications, enterprise applications or industry applications, it's going from a generic AI application, right? Use it in any industry that you wish, to really clusters or stacked AI applications that are specifically tuned to, say, for instance, hospital surgery rooms or for clean rooms or for vehicle manufacturing. So we're seeing the maturation of AI, which is still very much in its infancy stages, but coming out very specific for these vertical applications. So think vertical when you think AI. The other one that is equally interesting is using AI in a multi-agent environment where there's an overlay, again, very much a parallel to enterprise applications maybe 20 years ago, where there's an overlay that actually uses AI to coordinate workflow. Right. And I'm not talking about individual workflows. I'm talking about, say, for instance, lights out manufacturing. Right. You need that overlay AI to do that. And so you're going to see more and more opportunities of taking AI and understanding that AI really is still early, but taking it into environments where it becomes the coordinator of things and opportunities. But my favorite opportunity is something that has been bubbling along for quite some time, and that is space. I mean, we just had this amazing opportunity of a Canadian astronaut being up in the International Space Station. Space manufacturing, space construction is not a myth. It's not something from the Star Trek or Star Wars movies. It's very, very real, and it's a unique missed opportunity within the Canadian marketplace. Right. So Canada has relationships with Australia, with CSIRO, also with the European Space Agency, and looking at how do entrepreneurs actually take their technology instead of thinking about mining for whatever in Ontario or some other province, think about mining on a meteor, right? It's been proven, it works. And so this is a huge opportunity that has billions of dollars annually invested in it that doesn't make the headlines because it's not AI and it's not overly sexy, but that's a great place to look at it for growth. And then the fourth one is skills trade. Right. We've talked about housing. We've talking about high, youth unemployment. We're talking about all sorts of issues. But skills trade is really coming into its own. And it's when we look at carpenters or we look at electricians or look at that, they have as much of a role in building the nuclear industry that we have than they do in building houses. And there's a lot of technology that is now coming into play. And so even the most, when you don't think tech or you don't think growth, that really is where a lot of the growth is.
Wow, that was, such a mind-stimulating answer because very interesting take. One thing is clear that Canada is positioning itself as a leader in specialized niches, right? Proving that niche dominance is often more lucrative than, chasing broad, crowded markets. And also, when you were giving that answer, I love how passionate about this you are, right? And this also brings me to one question, and that is women in tech in Canada. So, from your extensive experience, where do you think women in tech are doing in Canada right now?
There's always room for improvement, and I don't just look at it as women in tech. I think it's looking at diversity in tech.
Yep.
Right? We have in Canada some of the most amazing minds to really redefine where Canada plays on the global stage. And I'd like to see Canada really step up and be a significant player. We've made a lot of progress over the years in seeing women in tech. We have a lot of opportunity for women in nuclear. I'd like to see a lot more of that. I'd like to encourage, if you're in high school and you're curious about nuclear, it is amazing because nuclear is in medicine. It's in a lot of different places. Great opportunity to expand into nuclear. We need more female presence, female leadership, and diversity leadership into nuclear. We have a lot already in health tech, so I want to go push on the nuclear, and I'm going to go push on the space because women are just as capable of developing complex products and solving complex problems. The benefit of women in a leadership position is when we look at the results of board of directors where there is diversity, true diversity, you find that the decision makers, or the decisions made, I should say, are actually better. There is a more balance between the data and really what the market needs and what the culture of the company needs, I should say. Yeah. So we've seen the results are there. I just think it's time for Canadian women to step up in nuclear.
Definitely. I think this is also a very timely conversation because women today are no longer, asking for a seat at a table. They are creating their own tables, right? So I'm so glad that we touched on this. Now, moving ahead, Christine, when we talk about small businesses, one thing that is often a bottleneck is the cash flow. So let's now touch on the hidden non-debt funding sources available to Canadian founders. So please go ahead and take this opportunity to educate our listeners about what non-debt funding opportunities are available to Canadian SMEs that many entrepreneurs overlook, right? And also, how can they position themselves to actually access them and not just, know about it? So go ahead.
And that's a really key, and I'm really glad you brought that up because there is such a gap that not just holds back specific companies, but it's holding back the entire country. There is this gap. And I'm going to go back to the first question that we had. If we look at where the shifts are happening at the federal and the provincial level and where they're making their investments, Carney just released his budget. Well, not just, but recently released his budget. Where there is that influence is typically where there is money. Right. And so as we spoke about at the beginning, as founders and entrepreneurs, you need to think kind of broadly as to where their technology or their product fits. That's where it comes into play in this scenario. If we know X number of billions of dollars are being invested in nuclear or being invested in healthcare and that product fits, then look to the government to do that. What I see is a huge missed opportunity are so many founders never meet with their MP and never meet with their MPP, right? That's the first step. These government officials need to meet with you because you are their constituents. So they know the insides as to where funding is. They know what the rules are. So build the relationship with the MP or your MPPs and also with some of your local government officials to start to navigate where that money is, whether it's in FedDev or whether it's in rural development. Shout out to Lisa Thompson. She's a huge proponent of Founders. Shout out to Dave Smith in Peterborough. So build a relationship there. I think the other thing is what's often overlooked is there's this mindset that says, okay, I now need money and I am going to go, to an angel group, right?
Yeah.
And someone's going to give me a check. It's not like that. Right. I think oftentimes what founders don't understand is they need to build relationships with these people long before they actually need the money. So go to your local angel meeting. You're more than welcome to attend. They'd welcome hearing about new companies. And so the net of the storyline is there are no hidden pots of money. There are, however, pots of money, but it requires relationship building because investors, whether it's an angel investor, whether it's a seed round, whether it's an accelerator that might have some money or a university that might have some money, those that have invested in building a relationship and, get engaged in that education about what the skill sets are in a better position to actually secure that money than someone that has not. That being said, go after grants, but grants are hard work.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like playing, roulette. If you don't get it just quite right, you're not going to get it. So the good news in this is that the gap is now recognized.
Yes.
It was recognized in that a fund has been started. It'll be a year or so before it's online to invest in this. But keep in mind, governments tend to like to de-risk their investments. So spend the evenings with angels and build that network. That's the best advice right now.
No, that is a golden advice, I'd say, because something as simple as relationship building is something that usually doesn't cross a layman's mind in usual day-to-day operations, right? But intentionally meeting the MPP and, the government officials is going to make a lot of a difference. And that is a game changer for founders because it emphasizes that grant readiness and strategic positioning can, unlock capital that people don't even know that exists out there. Hello, Canadian founders. Are you tired of the equity versus debt struggle? You need to listen to what Christine Crandell is saying. There are millions in non-dilutive funding and untapped markets waiting for you in 2026. If you're ready to stop playing small and start scaling, check out the Level Up Scale program. It's a free resource designed to turn your startup into a multi-million-dollar success story. All right, it's time for a quick break right here, but don't go anywhere because next we're unpacking how to use AI without losing focus on what truly drives your business.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah. Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back. Let's jump right in and break down how AI can be your biggest advantage without becoming a distraction. We talked about AI, and how it is just the start of the AI and so much is more to come. But when we talk about SMBs specifically, now the leveling playing field is there because the tech that was available to the larger corporations, the same tech is now available to the smaller companies as well. So, how do you suggest for SMEs with limited resources, where does AI genuinely create a competitive advantage, and where does it become more than, a help rather than just a hype, so to say?
And that's a really good point, and I'm really glad that you raised that. AI, well, let me back up. I've been in the tech industry for a long time, right? So when I look at AI, I'm looking at it through the lens of having seen the cycle of blockchain. Remember blockchain? Where's blockchain nowadays? So I'm not going to get overly excited about AI. It has potential in the right environment. So where we look at right now, AI is super hyped. So for an SME, be very clear as to where it fits and what that investment is. It requires people. Yes, AI requires people.
Yeah.
And it has to be in the right environment, meaning that if there's an opportunity to have to automate a workflow where the steps in the workflow are either yes or no, true or false, or some definitive answer, then it makes sense to look at it in terms of, yes, I can gain efficiency or I can gain speed or gain productivity. Trying to look at AI, and I see this oftentimes in environments where it requires human ingenuity or human creativity, is not really the best fit. Yep. For an SMB where there isn't a lot of money to spend on superfluous projects just out of curiosity, really zero in on things such as code, things such as looking at your tickets and your help desks, looking at accounting and finance. Again, very black and white answers. Yep. I'm a little not too keen on the HR side because it's not black and white. Yes. It's gray, and it requires the human to actually be involved. And looking at also on supply chain. So those are some of the key areas. But just because XYZ is doing AI doesn't mean the SME needs to do the AI. It's looking at that business case and knowing that you're for sure going to get that return, and it's not just going to be shelfware. We've been through that, I think, a couple of times since 2000, where we wind up having a lot of shelfware, and this runs the same risk if it's not done judiciously.
That's a vital reality check, I'd say, because it confirms that AI should be used to augment your core strengths rather than, becoming a project that distracts you from the actual work. Yeah. Great. Now, I'd love for you to take this opportunity to tell our audience about the Level Up Scale program and, how can everyone be a part of it?
Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful opportunity. So Level Up is one of the accelerator programs that the Innovation Cluster offers. We offer all these programs specifically for SMEs in a hybrid environment, right? So you can be anywhere and you can dial in. Where Scale Up is specifically focused, and I think it starts in about a month or so, specifically focused is, okay, I have market validation. I've got my beta out there. I may have my first one or two customers. Now the company is really focused on how do I go to 100 customers and how do I actually understand all the things that are attached to that? Help desks, customer onboarding, customer support, finance, right? Supply chain, inventory. These are all things that now can't all sit in one person's head or in two people's heads. And you start looking at it, how do I actually scale, right, with doing it judiciously? And doing it where it doesn't mean I'm just going to add more bodies, because that actually doesn't work in this environment where we have to pivot so quickly. So it's 6 weeks. It's a 6-week program. And actually, there's 2 pieces or 3 pieces to it. You can go through the program, figure out what you need to work on, figure out where the gap is in the knowledge, get that knowledge, and then move on to the next. So it's pretty intense, but it's a lot of fun, and it's free.
Wow. And where can they know more about it as well?
innovationcluster.ca.
Amazing. It is incredible to see such a high caliber resource being offered for free to Canadian founders. It truly, levels the playing field for our homegrown talent. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm loving this conversation, and definitely I'd love for you to be back where, we can dive into such deeper conversations. But for now, Christine, before we let you go, if there's one final piece of advice that you want our listeners to, stay with, specifically to the founders who are feeling stuck at their revenue growth, if you could whisper one thing into their ear, what would you say and why?
The one thing that I would whisper into your ear is don't be too attached to what you have today, right? We are in unprecedented times where there's as much opportunity as there is obstacles. So if you're faced with an obstacle and you're stuck, like you can't get that 51st customer or whatever, turn around and look at the opportunities through where the government is going and where you can align. So yeah, sometimes we need to let go of what we have, and we need to just turn around and evaluate new opportunities.
Wow. Golden words once again, Christine. It was such a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure as well.
All right, that was Christine Crandell from the Innovation Cluster, a masterclass in why aligning your strategy, funding, and growth structure is the true key to success. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more such resources. To learn more about how we are supporting the ecosystem, please visit the Canadian SME Small Business Foundation at smbfoundation.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our partners, UPS and ADP, our HR partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering SMBs across Canada. I'll see you all in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.